And now I'd like to hand you over to our first speaker, Uncle Dean Kelly. Thank you.
Thank you, Louise, and look, it's good to be here. It's good to be alive. And I want to acknowledge my old teacher before I speak any further. And I will explain what I said in language. It wouldn't be fair to you just to speak like that and not share that with you. My old teacher was Jayala Dalamunmun, a very special man who never went to school. He died at the age of 86, but in our culture we don't really look at death as the end. It's like an old tree. When an old tree falls over, the young tree sprouts up, but the old tree keeps on giving back to the land in different ways, in the deterioration. But my old teacher had 5 teachers, and he talked about lots of things in those teachings, and one of the things he talked about was 5 of them talking to him at the same time, one student, and then walking him around in circles in the bush. And for a lot of times I didn't ask my old teacher, why did they do that, Uncle? Because you didn't challenge the knowledge you were given. You weren't allowed to. It was a discipline thing, it was a respect thing. But through humour, because that's what kept that old man alive and keeps me alive as well, is humour, being happy and laughing and having fun. Through humour I found ways to ask those questions later on after travelling with him for about 20 years and getting little drops into my cup and slowly filling it up, and then every now and then he would turn it on full ball and see where I was up to and overflow my cup with knowledge and wisdom, and he filled me right up with lots of things. But I don't know everything. I'll never know everything. I've just got to accept that. But he was very special, and I got game enough and I said, Uncle, why did they do these things to you? Why did they walk you around backwards in the bush in circles lots of times? He walked twice from Woollahra Lake to Sydney in the bush with them. And he said sometimes they turn me around backwards and make me walk backwards in the bush with them, and still 5 of them talking to me, and 3 at the back, 2 at the front, and they'd swap over. And he had to answer the right one, and if he answered the wrong one, whack. No, wrong answer, you're not listening. 5 still talking to him. I said, why did they do that, Uncle? He said they gave me 2 university degrees in how to understand it. How to understand nature, the greatest teacher, biggest classroom, largest university. That old man, in my opinion, was an old tree, but he was also a scientist and a professor of nature. He could feel that little ant over there, or that little snake that no one sees. Feel. And he taught me a lot about eyes and ears and people and humanity, and he said, eyes and ears are a distraction. He said, you want to learn about sacredness, you got to feel it. Trees can do that. They got lots of energy, and we can't fly away like the birds with energy. We've got to stay grounded to these trees and everything that's around them. But trees are very important to our life and how we stay alive, because the number one thing we're taught in about 3rd grade is that they give us fresh air so we can breathe. They change our poison into fresh air. And others might say, no, that's not true and all this, but it's what I have been taught. Now, I've got to get back to the welcome quickly and just tell you what I said in language, okay? That's important. Nura is country. That's the first word I said, okay, after I identified myself as a Yuin man. Then I said Gamarada. Gamarada is friend. I also acknowledged the Gadigal people, the Guigal people, the Bidjigal people, the Cobrigal people of the Sydney area, and the language groups, the Darug, the Gundungara, and the Dharawal people. And again, there's a lot of people that are experts on language now, and I don't speak a lot of language. Not a lot. I've got lots of language, but I'm frightened that it'll get changed by writing it down. See, I wasn't allowed to write things down. And I'll get to the tree shortly, you know, but I wasn't allowed to write things down. My old teacher said no. He said, I'm 83 years of age and I can remember what happened yesterday. If you can't hold a memory overnight, there's something wrong with you. I'm meant to have Alzheimer's, he said. So he kept on telling me that and reminding me. So before he passed, I said, Uncle, can I have your memory when you go? He gave me more than his memory. My wife reckons he gave me his heart, because sometimes I speak and I don't have to think because of what I've been through and what I've been given. And again, I don't know everything, but I've been through the old ways. And that's still here on the southeast coast. That old man was the last proper teacher of culture. And there's culture up here and there's culture way down here. And I've been into the depths of it. And I had to go through the torment and the torture to get the teaching and the healing that comes with it. So I live in the bush. My job is in the bush. And I don't want to talk too much about that because it upsets me, because you can change one word in the job that I have in government and twist it all around and cut that tree down. These mobile phones, they're the first mobile phones in the world, ever. Don't need batteries. Telstra and Optus don't own them. And all I need to do to use them is hold respect. But they come off a tree that was at least 500 years old. I have the scientific names for all of that stuff, like Eucalyptus pilularis. What's another one? Eliocarpus reticulatus. I have all that stuff. But when them old fellas got me, they said, no more of that fancy stuff. That's showing off. This fella and that fella. And what they taught me about is that the rock was my mother, the tree is my brother, and the water is the blood in my veins. And I am country, but the wonderful thing about that is that you guys are too. We are human beings, and all human beings have come from the land. And that's what I was taught. And it's not about shape, size or colour. It's about intention and spirit. And if you bring the right spirit, you can see a big picture. You've got to keep that spirit clean and free of all that contamination like mobile phones and computers. That stuff blocks you up and fogs you so you can't see your way. But there's a big picture out there, and this tree stuff is very important to all of us, that we recognise how important not just the tree, but everything that's with it and everything that's connected to it. Trees are us upside down. A lot of people won't get that. But when you look at when we do our family trees, well, they do it in boxes these days. But when you look at the roots of a tree and you look in the ground, look at that there. And there's lots of little roots in there too. They're all coming from where they came from, what brought them here, their past. We do the same, but we go like that. We come down from our grandparents and so on and back and back and back. But we came from the land just like the old tree. And we can learn so much from just sitting next to an old tree and not saying anything. The most important stuff I ever did with culture was in silence. All the really important stuff, the deep stuff, you feel. You don't see, you don't hear. You block all that out so you can really feel what's in an area. And people talk about sacredness. A lot of people are looking for sacredness. Again, you have to feel it. Spirituality, you have to live it. You can't see it. People might think they see it, but spirit is a living thing inside you, and then it's all around you. So my old people were given two gifts in the beginning, what we call creation. The Creator, you guys have got creators, I'm sure you believe in God or Jesus or someone, a higher power. My Creator is Dharma. That's what I believe in. And my evidence is on my mountain down south on Woollahra, the Mother Mountain. And the story of creation is in a straight line from the west to the east, going from the bush to the ocean. And it's all there to see. And some people asked my old teacher, how did the old people get them rocks in place like that? The woman, the man, the gifts, the totems, all this stuff. And Uncle, because he had that humour, he said, oh, they had sky cranes and they lifted them up here on the mountain because they couldn't work out how old this stuff was. And Uncle had a story about the mud churning over on the camp where the old people were. And when he asked the people who know stuff, you know, and I don't want to criticise anyone, but they know about things like rocks and trees and stuff like that, and soil. When he asked some of the experts about it, they wouldn't give him an answer for when that mountain was last active as a volcano, because the story is that old. There's a site on the north coast that's 16 kilometres long, 22 metres wide and 8 metres deep. When the old fellas worked out metres, because they only worked in foots or inches or whatever, and this old man who I'm talking about lived till 118 years of age, he worked it out in metres. The 16 kilometres, the 20 metres and 8 metres, and it was all shell and bone, big long midden from the mangroves to the mountain. When he worked it out, he said it would take 120,000 years for a lot of people to eat that much seafood. How old is Aboriginal culture? It's not old, it's ancient. And it's still keeping us alive because there was no separation between the rock and the tree and the water and the people. And that's what we've got to start to look at. What are we leaving for our children? Are we leaving problems because we need and want? And the way you'll understand that is you drive a motor car, you got a laptop, you got a phone. They're all products of the land. When you go back to where that car came from, the body is metal, that's a rock. The grease, the oil, the tyres, rubber. What's a rubber? A rubber tree, ain't it? I don't know, I'm not an expert. I've just been taught things about what we're doing and how we're destroying ourselves. It's not all doom and gloom, not for us because we won't be here to see it, but humans will destroy themselves. They're trying to save the koala, they're trying to save the platypus from who? From us, what we did. I just read a little article about a lady studying the lyrebird. Lyrebird's very important in my language, it's Narranaran. Narranaran talks all languages, speaks to everyone, all dances, all ceremonies, very important. One time on my sacred mountain with my old teacher, the lyrebird's voice copied these clapsticks and counted us out. Every time we go in, we count how many go in, and on the way out, we count how many come out with the clapsticks. Well, the lyrebird did it for us to tell us to get out of his country. We'd had enough, we'd taken enough in knowledge. But we really got to start to look at what we're doing, because where these came from, off that Eucalyptus paniculatum, okay, grey ironbark, they cut that down because it became dangerous to people. And it was 500 years old at least, probably older. So I kept that tree alive through these old mobile phones. But they cut it down because it was going to fall on a human. My old people lived here for a long time. I won't put a date to it. And I've been to lots of special places. One that I can talk about is Mungo. I've been there where them old people were found. You know, because of the respect I have in community and the work I do and the spirit I carry. But we're not looking after country people. We're not doing that.